Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to BhagavatSanga class program. And as you all know, we are reading Dhruva Maharaj prayers to Lord Krishna. And the reference for these prayers are from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, verse 6 to 17. And today we have a very wonderful devotee, Prashant Prabhu, giving the class. It's Prabhu's first time class, and we are really excited to hear from Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Over to you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna devotees. Present. Share.
Should be in a green. Okay, yeah.
Yes, Prabhu, we can see.
Okay. In 1 second. Okay. Hare Krishna devotees. Today we're talking about prayers of Dhruva Maharaj, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, verse 6 to 17. Before we start, do some invocation prayers. So this is I think this is from our Houston temple, since this is Sri Sri Nilamalava. I think the first set of deities that I saw, so always very special to me. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedantas Srimati Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisheshi Shunyavadi Paschadeshtai Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasa Gauravani. And I won't do a full group pranam in the interest of time, but Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So the format, in the interest of time, the way I wanted to have it was we're going through kind of each verse, and I'm only going through verse 12, and then the second half I really wanted to focus on the realizations and connecting it to all the things that we've learned. So we'll start with kind of the setting the stage, right? So the Dhruva Maharaj begins his prayers with, my dear Lord, you are all powerful. After entering within me, you have eliminated all my sleeping senses, my hands, legs, ears, touch sensation, life force, and especially my power of speech. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So the summary here is Dhruva Maharaj was meditating on the Lord, and then when he lost sight of the Lord in his meditation, he was perplexed and he opened his eyes, and then before him he saw the Lord standing before him, and when he saw the Lord, he immediately bowed down and paid obeisances, and then he hesitated because he was not sure how to glorify the Lord. And the Lord, recognizing this, he touches him with his conch shell, and as soon as he does, Dhruva Maharaj becomes perfectly aware of Vedic conclusion and gains realization of his position and his relationship and his position in relation to Krishna and the Lord. So from the purport, and from the verse here, the main thing that I taking away these points. So the first point is, Srila Prabhupada says that we're in a state of sleeping senses, and Dhruva Maharaj says, you've enlivened my sleeping senses. So from what we can take away from that is, all of us in the material world, until we get the mercy of the Lord and we'll get realization, we are really still sleeping. And unless we come to the spiritual platform, right, we all of the facilities of our body are even are considered to be sleeping. And Dhruva Maharaj constantly is engaged himself in devotional service, and he only had the desire to serve the Lord as a devotee. And because that was the only thing he was engaged with, um, that's why the Lord revealed himself to him and revealed the Vedic conclusion to him. Um, and with this revelation, once he gets this knowledge, the Dhruva Maharaj realizes that the Lord is giving him this knowledge because he hesitated, right? He was in awe of the Lord, and he didn't know how to glorify the Lord. So, Lord, recognizing that Dhruva Maharaj was, is a pure devotee, and he's looking for guidance, he immediately gives him the knowledge that he needs so he can fulfill and glorify the Lord. So that's, the next set of verses. So um, from this verse, there are a few things that I took away from the purport. One is, the main thing is we should have the spiritual desire to only serve and glorify the Lord. If we have this desire, then the Lord will give us the knowledge to glorify him, right? So he will give us not only that, but he'll give us, the um, causeless mercy and realization of our true position and how we can serve Krishna. So the only way we can do that is through the process of bhakti yoga, right? We have to develop the desire with the goal to fully surrender and accept our position. And if we do that faithfully, then, in the purport, Prabhupada says the spiritual energy of the Lord will gradually reveal the Vedic conclusion and personal form of the Lord to us. And Prabhupada makes a more important point that this is only possible. Spiritual enlightenment is only possible through the mercy of the spiritual energy. So no matter how much we do, we can only be enlightened if we have the causeless mercy of the Lord. We have the causeless mercy of devotees, and the only way we get that is through devotional service. So in this verse, it's really that we are truly just sleeping and even if we until we get the mercy from the Lord, we are still we're still sleeping. And the Prabhupada concludes the purport in this verse by saying basically that the only way, right, is we have to gradually purify our senses, and then as we engage in devotional service, we develop our spiritual senses, and then our engagement at first may be mechanical and it may be material, but as we follow the process, as we purify our senses, then we transform our heart and we truly develop the desire to serve the Lord. And then when we develop that desire, the Lord reciprocates. So the next verse is Dhruva Maharaj is basically starting to glorify the Lord and establishing the supreme personality and supreme person of and Krishna's position. So he says, "My Lord, you are the supreme one, but your different energies you appear differently. But by your different energies, you appear differently in the spiritual and material world. You create the total energy of the material world by your external potency. And after creation, you enter within the material world as a super soul. You're the supreme person, and through the temporary modes of material nature, you create varieties of manifestation, just as fire entering into wood of different shapes burns brilliantly in different varieties." So my understanding from this verse and from the purport is, immediately Dhruva Maharaj establishes that Krishna is the supreme controller. He and his energies are the same. His energies are an extension of him, and Krishna controls the entire spiritual and material world through this energy. It clearly, in the purport, Prabhupada, in the translation, we can see that Dhruva Maharaj makes the distinction between the material energy and spiritual energy. And even though it's the same energy, it appears differently in the spiritual world versus material world because in the material world, it is illusory. It's Maya, but in the spiritual world, it's Krishna's pure energy. And finally, he says that Krishna is present in the material world through and in all of our hearts as the super soul. And without the super soul interacting with the material modes of nature, we're all just matter. So just like in the verse he says, through you enter within the material world as a super soul. You're the supreme person, and through the temporary modes of material nature, you create varieties of manifestation. So he is the fire that if as he enters matter, he gives us consciousness and gives us it gives us consciousness. So that's my understanding in this verse. So the next verse is. And in the interest of time, I will just give my understanding. So, in this verse, he brings up the example of Lord Brahma, and as a devotee that has full faith in the Lord, and then he goes on to say that the Lord is the only shelter, right? Is there's no other shelter in the universe that for anybody that desires liberation. And finally, he says the Lord is also the friend of everybody. And because, the Lord is the main shelter, the friend, and he's the person that even Lord Brahma believes in, how can somebody that has learned about the Lord ever forget the Lord? So, my understanding was once we fully surrender onto the Lord, there's no way we can forget him. Krishna reciprocates for everything we do in his service. The more we do, the more he reciprocates, and we can make further progress. So, Krishna gives us everything and everything material that we need and everything spiritual that we need. So, how can we ever forget him? And in Bhagavad Gita 9:22, Krishna says, but those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. So Krishna is always going to, if we remember Krishna, Krishna will give us everything that we need. He's our well-wisher and friend. Okay, so okay, so then this next verse is here. Dhruva Maharaj is contrasting, the supreme form and with sort of the material nature that he is. He's lamenting almost that um, I started out and I pursued the Lord because of his material desire to sit on his father's lap, but now that he understands the Lord and he's served his spiritual master, Narada Muni, and followed the instructions of Narada Muni, he now understands how trivial material desire is, and how trivial material sense enjoyment, sense gratification is. And it's the main thing here is sense gratification is not what the human life is for, right? And desire to enjoy, desire to um, experience material profit or sense gratification, Prabhupada says, is insignificant happiness. And if we pray to the Lord because we desire sense gratification or material profit, it's because we are ignorant, or we don't have true knowledge. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, if all we wanted was material sense enjoyment, we might as well be dogs and hogs, because that's the same level as animals. So if we only desire sense gratification, we may as well, we are wasting our human life, and it's and if we're praying to the Lord for, give me more sense gratification, give me more material profit, it's we are missing the point of human life. So let's see. I think that was the main realization here, and this is, I think, in the verse itself, it says, in spite of having you who are like a desire tree and are the cause of liberation from birth and death, foolish persons such as me desire benedictions from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions. So that's really reiterates that it's we should be praying to the Lord to do service for Him, not to enjoy or get benedictions for sense gratification. So the next verse is so in this verse, Dhruva Maharaj is really setting the order of why devotional service is the highest form of realization. In the verse, he says, "My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from pure devotee is so unlimited." And he compares that to, it's far beyond Brahmananda or Brahman realization of impersonal Brahman realization, and it's even more even more blissful than any happiness we could ever derive from following karma yoga or following karma yoga or jnana yoga, that it doesn't compare. So in this verse he says, it is the transcendental bliss is unlimited, and compared to Brahman realization or karma yoga, where we are still in the cycle of birth and death, it doesn't compare. So my realizations were, it's Prabhupada connects that transcendental bliss derived from Shravanam Kirtanam. So Shravanam, hearing, and Kirtanam is chanting, is cannot be compared to Brahman realization. And in Brahman realization, we are without engagement. We have nothing to hold on to. And then in Bhakti Yoga is and that should say Karma Yoga also pales in comparison to Bhakti Yoga, because in Karma Yoga, we are building up a balance, and as we build up the balance, we will go to heavenly planets, and then we will eventually have to come back down once we use up our balance. So, and we are still in the cycle of birth and death. We are still not escaped from the cycle of birth and death. So, ultimately, Bhakti Yoga is the only path to get out of the circle of birth and death. So the next two. So here, Dhruva Maharaj in this verse is praying for certain things. So the first thing is he's praying that if the Lord gives him association with great devotees who are constantly engaged in service of the Lord, and then he explains why the association of devotees is so important to realization, and it's only by continuous association can we hope to make any progress in spiritual life. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says, that the whole purpose of ISKCON is to have full engagement in devotional service 24 hours a day, and because we can do that, that's the only way we can truly be fully engaged and truly surrender to Krishna. And Prabhupada kind of connects that statement with what Dhruva Maharaj is saying is, greatest devotees, are constantly engaged in transcendental loving service. And and it's similar to how waves of the river constantly flow. So their, devotional service should be a continuous constant, just like a river. And the whole purpose of ISKCON is to have full engagement in devotional service, just like a river. It's the incessant flow of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada also says that, if we're engaged, and just like Dhruva Maharaj, he says, if we're engaged, then the blazing fire of the material world becomes insignificant. We don't feel the burning of the material world and the misery in the material world. We are constantly absorbed in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, and because we're so engaged, we have a much easier time at crossing the ocean of material existence. The last realization here was, Prabhupada also states that devotional service in the material world is the same as devotional service to Krishna in the spiritual world. So it's important that we realize that our service that we do here in the material world is just as important and just as transcendental and eternal as any service that we would do in Goloka Vrindavan. So that was very profound, that and from this purport. So this is the last verse I'll go through, and then we'll have enough time to go through the realization. So in this verse, Dhruva Maharaj says, with the pure devotee, the only thing that they're concerned about is seeking the mercy of the Lord, and seeking the lotus feet of the Lord. If we associate with devotees that always hanker after your lotus feet, as Dhruva Maharaj says, always seeking, and if we always seek to associate with devotees that are engaged in devotional service and engaged in the lotus feet of the Lord, then we will start to lose taste for material sense enjoyment and begin to, develop our spiritual senses, and develop our spiritual body. The easiest way, in the purport, Prabhupada says, is the easiest way to realize that we are not this body and we are spirit to soul is through association. So as soon as we come in contact with devotees, we feel the energy, and we feel the mindset of we are serving something much higher, we're serving something much greater, and we immediately get the realization that we are not this body, we're spirit soul. And through this realization, we become resilient to all the effects of material nature. At least in one of the first things I felt was we get perspective through which to understand our body, understand our position, understand what that the body is temporary and we are spirit soul, and the body may be affected, but we are not. So it helps us detach from the material body. And as we detach ourselves from the material body, we develop our spiritual senses, we begin to see Krishna everywhere, that everything is part parcel of Krishna. So with that, I'll go quickly through my realization. So I tried to do sort of who, what, when, where, why for realizations. And I put some famous verses that I think we hear all the time, but I think connecting it with what we should do. So who should be engaged in devotional service, right? Everybody should be engaged in devotional service. Atheists, karmakandis, jnana yogis, and highest of all, bhakti yogis. We should all be using this human life because it's so rare. In 7:19, Krishna says, after many births and deaths, he is actually acknowledged, surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, Masudeva Sarvamurti, and all that is, and such a great soul is very rare. So, who is all of us? We all of us in this human form of life, we have to pursue pursue devotional service. So what should we do, right? And Prahlad Maharaj says this very nicely. He says, we Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padas Sevanam, Archanam, Mandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atmanivedanam. So he says, we start from hearing, and step by step we get all the way to surrendering to Krishna. So that is the process that we should follow, and that's the only way we can understand our position, understand the transcendental Lord, and like Dhruva Maharaj is praying, right? We can uh, get the Vedic understand the Vedic conclusion, and understand our true service to the true position as servitor of the Lord. So when should we be doing? We should always be doing this. And it, like Prabhupada is saying, it's 24 hours. We should be engaged in Krishna. We should always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And I included it some of the main verses that help us understand this at a deeper level, right? It's Krishna will give us all the knowledge we need because he's in our hearts as Paramatma, and how can we forget Krishna when he's done everything is part and parcel of Krishna, and he's done so much for us. So where is everywhere, and same thing here, right? Is Krishna is the supreme controller, and the material world is an expansion of his energies. We should see Krishna in everything and everywhere, and every activity we do, at home, at work, at school, when alone, we should be thinking of Krishna. We should be thinking of how are we engaging with Krishna, or how are we not engaging with Krishna. And the more and more we engage with Krishna, and the more we see Krishna everywhere, the more we can purify our senses and make further progress. So yeah, this is where, and so why is, I think Dhruva Maharaj explains why, right? Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and there is no other way. Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasti eva nasti eva gatir, anatta, anyata. In this age of quarrel, in this age of Kali, there's only one means of deliverance, and that's to chant the holy name. There's no other way, no other way, no other way, right? So that's why we have to do it. The how is, I think, we constantly understand, we constantly hear on how we should do this. And I think I put the 9 stages of devotional service, and in what frame of mind, in Shastakam, it says we should chant, with in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street, being more tolerant than the tree, and always ready to offer respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So, I think that's the how. Is we have to be humble, and we have to be smaller than a blade of grass. So this is sort of the last thing, right, that I have is, what should we do? What should we not do? The easy thing is, if we focus on what we do, what we should do, then what we should not do is never happens. It's associate with devotees, books, read Prabhupada's books, chant 16 rounds each day, and diet, right? Only honor prasadam, follow regulated principles. So I think I'm over time, but I think it comes down to chant and be happy, right? So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I think I have too much content, so it's maybe might be a much longer class than I anticipated. So I went through it quickly. Please, devotees, please forgive me if I made any mistakes or said anything wrong, and Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Veena Mataji, Satsar Prabhuji, Judge Mataji, and all the devotees. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant Prabhu. That was a really fantastic class, like really brilliant. And yes, you did have lots of points, and there was so much for us to take in. And I really like how you presented all the realizations: who, what, when, where, why, how, crystal clear, what we have to do, and do's and don'ts. Really fantastic. And very nicely, you said how, ISKCON is full engagement 24/7 in devotional services. And the more we do, the more Krishna will reciprocate to us. And also the fact that if in this human life, if we are doing sense gratification and praying for material benefits, then yes, definitely we are wasting our time here. And thank you for starting the class with darshan of Sri Sri Radha and Nilmada deities. Really, really beautiful. With that, Prabhu, thank you for this fantastic class. It was really very nice. And we really liked it. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. With that,
Hare
devotees,
Krishna,
thank you
Mataji.
very much. Hare Krishna. With that, devotees, thank you very much for joining the BhagavatSanga program today. We will see you all next week. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Prashant Prabhu, a brilliant class, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Excellent class. Thank you so much.